Hello, student shellfish license holders. My name is Dan Devereaux, and I am the Brunswick Marine Resource Officer and Harbor Master. I'm here to talk to you about the town's student shellfish licensing program. First and foremost, congratulations on receiving your license. Unfortunately, you are still required to purchase a state shellfish license, which can be done online at the Maine Department of Marine Resources website at www.maine.gov/DMR. The student shellfish license season starts on June 15th and ends on September 1st. There will be several things you'll need to be familiar with before you venture out onto the Brunswick mudflats. Shellfish are filter feeders, meaning they filter the water for phytoplankton as a nourishment to grow. Waters along the Brunswick coast are tested frequently to determine whether or not the water is clean enough to allow shellfish to be harvested from. In the spring and summer, when water begins to warm and there is often a lot of spring runoff, shellfish closures are announced periodically. Be sure to check the Maine Department of Marine Resources Public Health website to be sure that you are in an open area for harvesting. Public health closures are taken seriously and result in large fines and penalties if you are caught harvesting during those time frames. Always be sure you are harvesting from an open, approved shellfish growing area. If you do not know, don't go. Now that you've purchased your town and state shellfish license, learned how to check for closures, you'll need to seek out your harvesting equipment. First, you'll need a good set of tight ankle hip boots. It's important to be sure that the boots fit your ankle tightly. It is normal to have difficulty getting on and off your boots in the beginning. Next, you'll need to purchase or borrow a clam rake. Clam rakes come in different sizes with tines at different lengths. If you're digging in the sand like Thomas Point Beach, a clam rake with round tines is preferred. If you're harvesting from the muddier areas like McQuaid Bay, Middle Bay, and Harpswell Cove, you will want a clam rake with the flatter and wider tines. You will also need a bucket, preferably an 8-quart bucket, which is commonly referred to as a peck bucket. Any bucket will work, however. An 8-quart bucket allows you to keep track of your catch. As a student, you're allowed 1 bushel of clams per tide. 1 bushel of clams equals 4 peck, or essentially 4 8-quart buckets. Be sure to stick with your harvest limits. Gloves are definitely a necessity. Clam shells are sharp and the mud and sand are full of broken shells, sharp rocks, and sometimes broken glass. Good set of rubber gloves are well worth the investment. You'll also need a couple of catch bags. These look like large onion sacks and are used to put your clams in as your bucket is full. It also allows you to wash the clams in the water on the incoming tide before you take them to market. Clam measures. There are 3 different types of clam species harvested in Brunswick. Each have certain size requirements before they can be taken. We'll discuss these sizes, and I'll discuss the species harvested later on in the video. Most shellfish equipment can also be found at your local marine supply store. Being familiar with the shellfishing regulations both at the state level and the local level is imperative when you have a shellfish license. I've already discussed shellfish closures and why areas close from time to time. I also mentioned size requirements. There are a few other local regulations that must be followed. Night harvesting is illegal. The open hours of harvest are 1 hour prior to sunrise until 1 hour past sunset. There is also no shellfish harvesting within any area of the town of Brunswick on Sundays throughout the summer. The shellfish you harvest must be sold to a licensed wholesale dealer within 8 hours of being harvested. These regulations are a mixture of shellfish management regulations and public health laws. Please be sure to keep your catch cool and alive all the way to market. Next, you'll need to know information regarding the clam species you'll be harvesting. Your student license covers softshell clams, quahogs, razor clams. Softshell clams are referred to as steamers and are thin-shelled and more oblong than a quahog. A quahog is referred to as a little neck, a top neck, or chowder depending on its size, and are a harder-shelled clam species. A razor clam is a thin-shelled, very long clam referred to as a jackknife clam. As mentioned, each clam species has different size requirements. Softshell clams have to be 2 inches long. Razor clams have to be 4 inches long. And quahogs have to be 1 inch thick at the hinge. So now that you have some of the basics down, it's time to head out onto the flats. An important part of being successful at shell fishing is knowing where to harvest and how to dig. Soft-shell clams are buried in the mud 6 to 10 inches deep. They feed using a siphon that reaches to the surface of the ocean bottom and leaves small pock marks or holes. Locate these holes and pock marks and you'll be sure to locate clams. I encourage you to be patient, as it will take time before you become efficient enough to dig an entire bushel of clams in one tide. Remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. Persistence and patience will eventually pay off, and you'll be filling your bucket in no time. Remember, if you don't know if it's safe to dig an area, don't go. And if you want to know, be sure to call the Brunswick Marine Resource Division at 207-721-4312. Always ask the landowners for permission before crossing private property. If you use Thomas Point Beach for access, please be sure to pay the park's daily fee. And last but not least, if you need additional instruction beyond this video, please be sure to call the Marine Resource Office in advance of heading out on the flats. Thank you for your attention and have a wonderful summer digging clams on the Brunswick Mud Flats.